Okay, call to order. Good evening. Today is Tuesday, July 21st, 2020. And the Hanson Board of Selectmen will meet in executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 2030, Section 21A, Exemption 1, to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than the professional competence of an individual, or to discuss the discipline or dismissal of or complaints of charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. I'm looking for a motion to go in executive session.
So moved by Matt.
Second by Jim.
Motion's made and seconded. The public body will reconvene in open session at the end of executive session. Roll call vote, please. Mr. Hickey,
Aye.
Mr. Dyer,
Aye.
Mrs. Kevin,
Aye.
Mr. Bloss,
Aye.
and Mitchell, aye. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting. Today is Tuesday, July 21st, 2020. This meeting is being shown on Whitman Hanson Cable Access Television. It's being recorded and it'll be available to view in the future at whca.tv/watch. The meeting is being held virtually in accordance with Governor Baker's orders during COVID-19. There'll be no public participation this evening. We have done a preliminary roll call prior to the start of the meeting. When we move into the meeting, the votes will be done by roll call so that there'll be clarity on the votes, as will comments and discussions. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Laura, you want to go over the announcements for us, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Fabulous. FY21 real estate and personal property bills have been mailed and are due on August 3rd, 2020 for the first quarter and November 2nd, 2020 for the second quarter. If anyone has not received a bill, please call the Treasurer Collector's Office at 781-293-2422. 3 at-large members are needed for the newly constituted Deregionalization Feasibility Committee. If you are interested in submitting a volunteer application for consideration by the Selectmen, please download the form on the town website, www.hanson-mass.gov. All applications must be sent to ggetson@hanson-ma.gov by August 10th. Volunteers are also needed on the following committees: Facebook Upkeep Committee, 200th Anniversary, Conservation Commission, Associate Member, Cultural Council, Disabilities, Economic Development, Finance, Highway, Building Committee, Historical Commission, Memorial Day, Patriotic Observance, Memorial Field Trustees, North River Commission, and Zoning Board Alternate. Applications for appointment and info on the committees are available on the town website at www.hanson-ma.gov. Upcoming meetings: Wednesday, July 29th and possibly 30th, 2020, annual and special town meetings. Tuesday, August 11th, 2020, Board of Selectmen, and Tuesday, August 25th, 2020, Board of Selectmen.
Okay, thank you. All right, so first under the agenda is town meeting preview. So what we'll do is we'll go through the articles and read the motions, and then there's some articles that the board wanted to wait and either recommend or not recommend, and we wanted to wait for FinCom's recommendation, which we do have. So we'll run through all of the warrants, and then we'll go back and recommend what we have to. Is Sean with us tonight? Oh, there he is.
I am here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so do you want to start us off? Do you have the information in front of you?
I have the 2 warrants. And so I'm just a general announcement. I'm going to be I submitted a letter to the Express today, kind of going over some of the procedure for town meeting and just to kind of let people have a sense of what we're expecting to happen. Of course, nobody really knows what's going to happen because we've never done it before. But as usual, I'll call the meeting to order and then adjourn the annual town meeting and go into the special town meeting. We'll take care of Article 1, which I believe you, Mr. Mitchell, are going to move.
Give me 1 second. Okay, Article 1. I move the town vote to transfer $1,496.50 from free cash from free cash to pay Able Construction LLC for a liability related from fiscal years, from prior fiscal years.
And this will require a 9/10 vote. So as with past practices, I'll ask the meeting to give me the ability to determine the quantum of the vote. Hopefully, we won't have too many dissenters from this one. Just as a point of information, we kept Article 1 out of the consent motion just because it needed 9/10 vote. So hopefully that'll take care of whatever difficulty there is.
Okay.
The second order will be, again, Mr. Mitchell, you'll do the consent motion, which takes care of Articles 2 through 7, which is the rest of the special town meeting.
Okay.
What I'll do and what I'm planning on doing is once you've made that motion, I'm going to go through each of the articles just very briefly and allow people to hold and see if we have any holds on it.
Okay.
And if there are none, then we'll just take one vote on the whole consent motion. Hopefully that passes. If it doesn't, then we'll have to do this one by one. But I think the way I'm planning on doing it should take care of that, because you can always go back and just, I mean, if somebody has a quick question on Article 5, we can deal with that and then just vote everything at once. Do you agree, Kate?
Yeah, I agree. And I guess for the purposes of tonight, last week we didn't have FinCom's votes, but maybe Kevin can speak to it. Were there any articles in that special town meeting where FinCom voted to not recommend?
No, there were not.
Ah, good. Okay. And so the selectmen will presumably vote to recommend all of those tonight. I know you held off waiting to hear what FinCom's saying, but presuming you're all on the same page, I agree. It should be smooth sailing.
As I said, if for whatever reason the consent motion doesn't go, then we'll just proceed as normally. We'll go one by one. Everybody has their motions in front of them, so I'll just recognize each of you in turn, and we'll knock it off as quickly as possible. But I'm hoping that we can dispense with the special town meeting very quickly.
Okay. So I'll go ahead with the special town meeting consent agenda. In order to expedite the consideration of routine items, Article 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 will be considered for approval in a single vote without debate. I will read, well, it's saying we can change that. So this is almost like Sean, you're saying it, but it's that I will read each article number and description. And if a member of the meeting requests a hold, the item may be discussed. Then the articles will be moved as a group as printed in the warrant.
And so, Kenny, I think you're reading Sean's lines. All you have to say is I move to approve the articles 2 through 7 as printed in the informational warrant. And then Sean goes on with the explanation of the holds and all that jazz.
Graham will take care of that for me.
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. So that's 2 through 7. So that wipes out a little bit of a chunk there.
And then we'll go to the annual. Again, I'll start off by explaining.
Sean, hold on 1 second. Does anyone have any questions on the special town meeting?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Matt.
I don't mean to prolong the meeting any more than it needs to be, but I think with this being town meeting preview, for anyone watching this at home to see if they want to show up because they're so passionate about a push behind snow blower, I think it might just be a good idea just to run through these real quick, just so we get the information out there.
And Kenny, you need recommendations on a couple of them, I think beginning with Article 4 too.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the recommendations after we go through the preview, so I don't keep everybody on the call.
Sorry about that.
I hope it was someone important, Sean.
No, nobody more important than this distinguished group.
Good answer.
Some guy named Biden, I don't know.
Okay. So, Article 1, let's see. Actually, wait a minute. Give me 1 second here. So Matt, is that what you wanted? You want, that's on the annual, on the special.
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to read the articles just, and I can go?
If I can find it, please. Thanks, John.
Okay, so Article 1 is, again, this would be the chairman, Mr. Mitchell, moving. I move the town vote to transfer $1,296.50 from free cash to pay Able Construction LLC for a library-related unpaid bill from prior fiscal years. That's a bill that's been outstanding since fiscal year 19. We got it in late from them. Unpaid bills are things that are paid from a prior fiscal year. We can't use this year's fiscal year's money to pay past year's bills without town meeting approval. So that's a 9/10 vote on that one. Would you want me to keep going, Mr. Chairman, or whatever you'd like? Yes? Okay. Again, this would be, this would only be read if the consent agenda does not pass. We'd have to go article by article. What the chairman read earlier, the Article 2 through 7 motion on the consent agenda would be what would pass. So let's say the consent agenda does not pass. We have to go article by article. Article 2 would be to move the town vote to transfer $6,262 from free cash to reimburse the Whitman Hanson Regional School District for repairs made to the elevator at the Indian Head Elementary School. And the Board of Selectmen voted 5-0 to recommend that. And the Finance Committee also voted 5-0 to recommend. So I have Mr. Hayes, the school committee chairman, moving that one. And I'm not sure if he's on here or not. I can't, I don't know. I can't see the name. So, but that, that was just to reimburse the district for elevator repairs. Article 3, again, would be moved by Mr. Hayes, again, only if the consent agenda doesn't pass, to move the town vote to transfer $25,000 from free cash to pay for the removal and replacement of sidewalks at Indian Head Elementary School and or Hanson Middle School. Again, that's to fix sidewalks there. The Board of Selectmen voted 5-0 to recommend that, and the Finance Committee also voted 5-0 to recommend that article. Article 4 would be moved by Mr. Dyer, again, only if the consent agenda doesn't pass. I move the town vote to transfer $3,750 from free cash to pay for the purchase of a walk-behind blower. That's one where the Board of Selectmen is going to have to vote later on to whether or not to recommend or not. The Finance Committee did vote 5-0 to recommend. And Mr. Cahill, I believe, is on the call here. Yes, he is. So he would be able to speak to that if anyone had any questions on that article. Article 5 would be to move the town vote to transfer $11,250 from free cash to pay for the purchase of a highway berm curber. The Board of Selectmen has not voted on that. We'll vote on that. They'll vote on that later. The Finance Committee voted 5-0 to recommend that one. Again, this would only be read if the consent agenda doesn't pass. Article 6 would be moved by Mr. Hickey, only if the consent agenda doesn't pass. I move the town, you would say, I move the town vote to transfer $10,000 from free cash to pay for improvements to private gravel roads in the town of Hanson. The Board of Selectmen hasn't voted on that one yet, and the Finance Committee has voted 5-0 to recommend that one. And then the last article would be moved by Mr. Bloss, only if the consent agenda doesn't pass, to move the town vote to amend the wage and personnel bylaws, Article 2-12, classification and compensation, by deleting sections 11A through 11E in its entirety and inserting the new sections 11A through 11E as printed in the informational warrant. Again, that article is just to update the lower end of the minimum range for all positions to reflect the new minimum wage of $12.75 an hour. And the Board of Selectmen has not voted on that one. And the Finance Committee voted 5-0 to recommend. So that was it on the special town meeting.
Okay, thanks, John. Any questions? Okay, so we'll move on to the annual town meeting.
Yep, and once again, I believe, Mr. Mitchell, you're making the consent motion that will cover Articles 1 through 4, 13 through 16, 18, and then 20 and 21.
Okay.
So I have a question on this one, John. Are you planning for the informational warrant of having the consent agenda? Because the way the motion reads is I move to approve the articles in the consent agenda as printed in the informational warrant. Are you planning on having a separate page with a consent agenda?
So
Or should we just say, I move to approve articles X, Y, Z? I think that might be cleaner.
what I was thinking was that Mr. Keeley would put forth the consent agenda as he has it, and we'll see how town meeting goes with it. And I don't know what people will vote and what they won't. This may not be the final consent agenda because someone might want to pull out Chapter 90 funds. I'm angry at Chapter 90 funds, and I want to talk about it. So I don't want to presuppose that this will be the final consent agenda so I guess the answer to your question is this was what I was thinking of starting with and then seeing how town meeting was going. But again, it's up to the moderator, obviously.
Yeah, I have no problem keeping all of these articles in. There is a possibility, as John points out. I don't think we have any really controversial pieces in this consent agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure, looking at the warrant, that I would add any of the articles to it.
Yeah, I just think in terms of the motion, we should say articles X, Y, Z, whatever those articles are, what we finalize on. And then we can quickly, if we see one's going down the tubes, we can quickly strike that from the motion.
We should do the same thing as the special. It just lists them.
Yep, agreed. I think so, Kenny.
Okay. Yes, because that's what mine says consent agenda motion. I move to approve the articles in the consent agenda as printed in the informational warrant. That's it. So on that paper, I don't have I know which ones because I have it in front of me over here, but I think that's easy to fix.
Yeah, we'll just toss those listed in the consent agenda in the actual motion. Yep.
Right. Okay.
I'll add that in, no problem.
All right. So
would you like me to go over, for the purposes of the just public consumption, what
no,
those?
Sean, you know what we'll do? We'll just go through each article quickly individually, just so everybody knows exactly what they are.
Fine.
Okay. So Article 1, I move the town vote to hear reports of various town offices, committees, special committees, and act thereon. That's Article 1. Article 2, Mr. Dyer.
I move the town to vote to authorize the treasurer collector to enter into compensating balance agreements during the fiscal year 2021 as permitted by Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53F.
Excellent. And again, that's part of the consent agenda. Article 3, Mrs. Kennett. you have it in front of you, Laura?
Sorry about that. I move the town vote to transfer the sum of $20,000 from overlay surplus to pay for the purpose of funding the treasurer collector's tax title account.
Okay, great. Article 4, Mr. Hickey.
To see if the town will vote to fix the salary and compensation of all paid elected officers and committees of the town as follows, or take any other action related thereto.
Right. Okay. Article 5, which is Mr. Hayes. I move the town vote to approve the amended Whitman Hanson Regional School District Agreement on file with the town clerk.
Now, I take it there's a need to deal with this before we get to Article 6. Is that correct, Kate?
Yes, because the budget, it as constructed, I think John could speak to this better than I could, but the budget as constructed presumes that the lesser amount in the amended agreement is the assessment by the school. So it's better to approve it that way first, if it gets approved.
Okay, and this is not recommended by FinCom. So Kevin, are you going to be doing most of the speaking for FinCom, or are you guys breaking it up somehow?
No, I'll do most of the speaking for the FinCom.
Okay.
And
Article,
sorry, Mr. Chairman, just real quickly, remember that Whitman is meeting on next Monday, the 27th. That's when they're having their town meeting. It is possible that they have a similar article on their warrant. They could vote it down, and this could be moot because both towns have to vote for it in order for it to be a valid agreement.
right,
That's
great.
true, and you can always pass it over if that's the case. If we find we know everything by the time we get to our town meeting, so you can move to pass over at that point. But regardless, then the budget, it's still okay because you budget and approve what you approve regardless of the assessment, so.
Right, okay.
On the other hand, though, Kate, wouldn't there be a value to being on the record as to what the meeting wanted on this article, regardless of what Whitman does?
There could be a political reason to move it forward, even though knowing it would be ineffective.
So I'm going to, prior to the meeting, we'll know what Whitman did. I would imagine this group can get together and discuss what we'd like to do, what your pleasure will be.
Aren't we scheduled to meet just prior to this town meeting?
Yeah, and FinCom typically meets as well, so.
Yeah.
We're not scheduled to meet. If you need us to meet, we'll meet, but we're not scheduled to meet until town meeting.
You might want to put a meeting on just in case. I'm just because the bunch of you will be standing together before the meeting.
Okay, Article 6, Mr. Bloss.
Ken, I don't have, I have Article 6 on the warrant, but I don't have an Article 6 to read.
No, I
Nope.
don't think any of us got motions. At least I didn't. We're just winging it.
All right, so I'm just to determine what sums of money the town will raise and appropriate by taxation, transfer from free cash, transfer from town ambulance funds, water department revenue, water surplus, Title V Special Revenue Fund, MWPAT loan repayment receipts, reserved for appropriation, conservation notice of intent fund, overlay surplus, and fund balance reserved for reduction of future excluded debt to defray charges and expenses of the town, including debt and interest, and to provide for a reserve fund for the 2021 fiscal year.
Excellent, thank you.
And
Article
just, oh, sorry, just Mr. Chairman, the motion is what Mr. Bloss just read, and then it just says down below, as printed in the Finance Committee recommends column of the informational warrant. That's all, that's the motion.
Okay,
And then as typical, I'll go through each line, I'll pause, I'll let people hold, and then we'll return to those to take up debate.
And
Okay.
John, we'll have a binder at the meeting, right? Like we usually do.
Yes,
Okay.
I didn't want to have a binder and then, because you haven't voted on some of the articles. As soon as we get a vote tonight, tomorrow, we're going to set the binder up.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Article 7, Diane Cohen. I move the town vote. Diane's not on, right? Okay. I move the town vote to raise and appropriate the following sums of money to operate the Recreation Department during fiscal year 2021 under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53F.5, as printed in the Finance Committee's recommendations column of the informational warrant. Article 8, Mr. Amato, are you on?
Mr. Mitchell, just briefly, on Article 7, are those
Yeah.
numbers going to change significantly? This is probably more for John. Are these numbers going to change significantly because of, the cove not being open, the revenues not being realized at Camp Quaney?
So the in the motion that you're looking at, Mr. Keeley, the numbers have changed. They've dropped down significantly from what's in the printed warrant that's been posted. I don't have the printed warrant in front of me, but something like 304,000, and it has dropped down to 229. So these are the recommended numbers from the Finance Committee in the recommended column.
Thank you.
Okay, Article 8 is Mr. Amato on.
Yes, I move the town to vote to raise and appropriate following sums of money to operate the transfer station during fiscal year 2021 and the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53F.1/2, as printed in the Finance Committee recommends column of the information warrant.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, Article 9, Tom Hickey, are you on the call?
No, Don Kemen's doing it for him.
Okay, great, thank you. Go ahead.
All right, I move the town vote to appropriate or reserve from fiscal year 2021 Community Preservation Fund estimated annual revenues in the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administration expenses, community preservation projects, and other expenses in fiscal year 2021, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation as printed in the warrant.
Okay, thanks, John.
The explanation, this is housekeeping.
Okay, sorry to cut you off. Any questions? Okay, Article 10, John Norton, are you on the call? Okay, I move the town vote to adopt capital improvement program as presented by Capital Improvement Committee. Explanation, this is the annual article which approves a capital improvement matrix for the next fiscal year. Article 11, I move the town to vote to transfer 230,000 from free cash and 70,000 from water surplus to various department capital accounts as printed in the informational warrant. And then let me just go through these real quick. Line 1, school Indian Head School and the middle school, $50,000. And it looks like FinCom recommends that 4-1. Line 2, highway hydraulic chipper, $50,000. FinCom recommends that 5-0. Number 3, highway department communications upgrade, $45,000. FinCom recommends 5-0. Line 4, recreation ventilation in the kitchen, hood and electric, $35,000. FinCom recommends 5-0. Recreation lodge wiring, $50,000. FinCom recommends 5-0. Number 6, water utility truck, $70,000. FinCom recommends 5-0 for an FY21 total of $300,000. Does anyone have any questions on Article 11?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Matt.
quick question. I just wanted more information on communication upgrades. What does that entail?
Mr. Cahill. Are you
Yes,
on the
sir.
call? Can you
Yes,
answer
sir.
Mr. Guy's question about communications, please?
Yes, I can. So currently, both police and fire are moving to the ROC system, which is a regional communication system, and it's also digital. We run on UHF and VHF currently. As technology progresses, it's going to become more and more difficult for us to communicate with the police and fire during times of heavy emergencies, such as windstorms, snow and ice events, and other related big events that occur in town. The idea behind the article is for us to just to upgrade the system that is old and failing at this time. There are times during the snow and ice events that we can't talk across town and have issues with communications.
Does that satisfy your question, Matt?
It does.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
And I can go into more detail with it if you'd like me to. Sorry.
I think what you said is sufficient, Mr. Cahill. Thank you very much. Okay, Article 12. I move the town, this is Bob Hayes. I move the town vote to transfer $14,000 from free cash to capital accounts for the Whitman Hanson Regional High School items as printed in the informational warrant. Line 1, high school, guidance and sped counseling in area reconfiguration, $14,000. FinCom recommends 5-0 for $14,000. Any questions?
Yeah, could this article be written a little more simply since there's only one line item?
You mean not use the matrix type of thing?
Exactly.
Yeah, probably. It looks like that there was probably more than one line, and then they took some stuff out, and as a result, you only had one line. So I'm sure you could create just a simple article.
There was the phone system and some other stuff that they pared back on.
You don't have to read the grid because you're referring to the informational warrant. You can just read from I down to warrant period. Otherwise, we can just say, I move the town vote to transfer $14,000 from free cash to capital accounts for guidance and sped counseling area reconfiguration. Done. We could do it like that too, whichever way you want.
Okay, that's fine. We wanted to read it all tonight just for the folks listening at home. Any more questions on Article 12? Article 13, Tom Hickey.
Mr. Kemet.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, John, go ahead.
All right. I move the town vote to transfer $7,000 from the Community Preservation Committee's Historical Resources Reserve Fund to pay for the purchase and placement of historical markers throughout the town. And the explanation is the same.
Any questions on Article 13? Okay. Article 14, I move the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept and enter into a contract for the expenditure of any allocated or to be allocated funds by the Commonwealth and or county pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 90 for the construction, reconstruction, and improvements of town roads. FinCom 5-0 recommended, and we voted 5-0 to recommend Article 14. Article 15, Mr. Dyer.
I move the town vote to set the spending limits of the following revolving accounts in accordance with the Hanson General Bylaw, Article 2-9, Section 3, as printed in the informational warrant.
Okay. And Article 15 is part of the consent agenda. Article 16, Kathleen Keefe.
Kathleen's not here, but this is Lee Gamache, so I can present it.
Okay, great.
Okay, I move to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 20, 2G, inserted by Chapter 208 of the Acts of 2018, known as an act relative to veterans' benefits, rights, appreciation, validation, and enforcement, the BRAVE Act, signed into law on August 28, 2018, which provides for a property tax exemption for real estate that is the domicile of a person but is owned by a trustee, conservator, or other fiduciary for the person's benefit if the real estate would be eligible for exemption under Clause 22 through 22nd A through 22nd F, if the person was the owner of the real estate or act on anything related to. The explanation is, the purpose of this article is to provide real estate property tax relief in the form of an exemption to veterans who have already been eligible for such exemption under the clause mentioned above, even if the veteran has conveyed the property to a trust. The town of Hanson expects to receive partial and in some cases full reimbursement from the Commonwealth for each exemption if adopted.
Okay, great. And the Board of Selectmen and FinCom both voted 5-0 to recommend Article 16. Article 17, Mrs. Cummings.
I move the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen on terms and conditions they determine to be most beneficial to the town to enter into a community choice aggregation program and contract for electric supply for Hanson residents and/or businesses, and to execute and enter into any and all documents necessary to effectuate the same as per Mass General Laws, Chapter 164, Section 134.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Laura, do you know if Green Hanson or anybody is planning on making a presentation about this, or what they're going to do to educate people about it?
I don't know about a presentation, but I do know, I can certainly ask Marianne and Maureen and those guys and Melissa to reach out to you. They've definitely been doing a campaign on social media trying to educate people about what this is. And I think there seems to be some concern that we're just going to move right to this. And, I don't necessarily think people are appreciating that there's a vetting process, and this just allows the selectmen to kind of move forward with the vetting process, and there's public hearings and all kinds of other stuff that need to happen. And I do think that's my long-winded way of saying, Sean, and because of all of that, I do think that they need to present something. I don't think it's going to stand on its own legs. I think there needs to be some supplemental information provided.
Yeah, because this is, time is obviously at a premium this meeting, and I can see this article, along with a couple of others, being very, very time consuming. So I'm almost inclined to say we'll have a hard stop after 20 minutes and see where we are.
I mean, you've got Marianne's contacts. Marianne, maybe reach out to her and just suggest, because I mean, it is being proposed by the Board of Selectmen, but it was really brought to us from the Green Hanson folks. So, she had even toyed with perhaps waiting until October to put this on the warrant. So, maybe that's a conversation you can have with her.
And I wouldn't object to bringing the issue up and spending a couple of minutes on it and then saying, let's pass over it until October. That might be the more prudent way to do it. I just don't want to get into an hour-long discussion, especially where the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom have differing opinions on this.
Yeah, and I think you don't want to get into that kind of a conversation, nor do you want to give it short shrift, right? Because this is that's a tricky balance there.
Yeah, I just, I would prefer, I'm not, we're going to spend a lot of time on the schools, and that's probably right. I just don't want to steal away from those debates from, this.
Let's have Marianne reach out to you, Sean, and you guys have a discussion before town meeting.
Okay, great.
Okay, Article 18, Mr. Hickey.
To see if the town will vote to delete all references to the phrase highway surveyor in the town bylaws and replace those instances with the phrase highway director, or take any other action in relation thereto.
Okay, and Article 18 will also be part of the consent agenda. Article 19, Mr. Bloss. Do you have that?
Yep, I do. I move the town vote to amend the wage and personnel bylaws, Article 212, classification and compensation by deleting section 12EA in its entirety and inserting a new section 12EA as printed below.
Okay.
And Kenny,
Yes.
I got an email from Jamie Kenny today, who said that she got some emails from some of the union folks who were concerned about that. And so John and I are going to work on the explanation to make it super clear that this is for wage and personnel employees, not your collective bargaining agreement employees. So we'll fix that for the warrant, and just in case anyone's listening at home.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Kate. Okay, Article 20, which is part of the consent agenda. I move the town vote to amend general bylaws by inserting new section as printed in the informational warrant. Explanation. Acceptance of this bylaw will allow the town clerk to make a non-substantive renumbering change to the town general and zoning bylaws that were approved at town meeting and then subsequently by the Attorney General's office to correct non-substantive numbering issues. And that's Article 20. Article 21, Mr. Dyer.
All right, this is also a part of the consent agenda. I move the town vote to amend the general bylaw, Article 1-1, article relating to town meeting, Section 1A, by deleting those portions marked as crossed out, printed in the informational warrant.
And Kenny, on this one too, Beth caught me, and I went a little too crazy on the striking there. There's a couple of sentences, well, a couple of clauses that I have to unstrike to make sure you guys still have an election. But I'm going to fix that for the informational warrant, and it'll be all set for town meeting.
So you got a little carried away on the crossouts?
I got crazy with the crossouts.
Okay, no problem. All right, so that's,
What a lawyer can have.
I'm sorry. Good. All right, Article 22, Mrs. Cummett.
I move the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court to amend Chapter 41 of the Acts of 2006, an act establishing a town administrator in the town of Hanson as follows.
Okay. And
I'm
sorry. I was going to say, Laura, you'll explain that one if people have questions?
Well, I mean, I'll attempt to, sure.
Okay. Mr.
Mr.
King.
Chair, about that though, Mr. Mitchell. In looking at it, I thought back to the last town meeting where just changing the term for moderator from 1 year to 3 years started a 15-minute debate. I'm looking at this and I'm not telling you guys what to do. I have no position on the merits, but this could be a huge time suck on a night where we don't need that.
I agree. We could easily kick this can to October. I mean, it's just one gal's opinion, but.
I agree too, for what it's worth.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, after today, I got some feedback from quite a few people about this article, and I think that we need to have a greater discussion with everyone, all the boards included, because I think people were afraid that we were stripping power and consolidating power, and there was a secret agenda going on. I think that we need to have a deeper discussion with everyone.
Agreed.
Yeah, and that's funny you say that, Matt, because I actually got a couple of calls on this. One particularly on Saturdays. So yeah, so I mean, if we want, we can pass over and revisit this for October if that's what the consensus is, you know.
I mean, I just don't think it, to be honest with you, it was just our initial reason impetus for this was to clean up the disconnect that happened with the recreation admin, and how people were a little confused about what the role for the TA was with that. And then Kate had recommended a lot of these other changes, and I'm not sure we've sufficiently kicked the tires on this, and discussed it with like planning, conservation, health, like what does it mean to them? Do they care? What would their involvement be? So I think, for the reason Matt mentioned, and then also what Sean is saying, is that this is going to take a lot of time, and in reality, is this a priority at this very moment for us to do anything about this? I don't think it is.
So Kate, do we have to make a motion to pass over this, or can we just pass over it?
So your tradition is to move to pass over, but if no one makes a motion, it just doesn't get heard. I mean, someone has to move an article for it to be before town meeting. So some people find it cleaner just to move to pass over because people understand you're going on to the next one.
That's what we'll, I mean, is that the consensus of the board? I want to make sure. Okay, Mr. Bloss, Mr. Hickey, you okay with that?
I'm good. I'm
Okay.
good with that.
So John, can we move the Passover Article 22 at town meeting?
Yeah, I'll change the motion for Ms. Fitzgerald Kemet just to say, I move to pass over this article, or whatever the usual wording is here.
Okay, yeah. Because I think if we just skip it, even though we're permitted to do that, people are going to think something shady's going on, and that's not our intention. So I think we should be really crystal clear and say we're moving to pass over it.
Yep, good, excellent, okay. Article 23, Mr. Hickey. You have it, Jim?
Yep.
Okay.
I move the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the general court in compliance with Clause 1, Section 8 of Article LXXXIX of the amendment of the Constitution to the end that litigation be adopted proceeding as follows. The general court may make clerical or editorial changes to form only to the bill unless the town administrator approves amendments to the bill before enactment by the general court. The town administrator is hereby authorized to approve amendments that shall be within the scope of the general public's obligations to this petition.
Thank you, Jim. So I got a couple calls on this one too, actually. Those are the only two.
I'm gonna have to proofread.
Yeah, you're fine, Jim. So yeah, any questions on Article 23?
I was just wondering if, to help out Mr. Hickey, because this is a huge problem for me too. Maybe, John, when you print out his motion, you could reduce the Latin numerals to Arabic.
Does anybody know what it actually says? Because I don't.
Yeah, it's 89.
89.
Oh, is it? Okay.
But I spend way too much time reading the Massachusetts
I
Constitution.
was thinking in terms of Super Bowls, so that's why I don't know it, because we haven't made it to 89.
Exactly.
We'll live to see Super Bowl 89.
Yeah. So John, can you help him out on that one? I agree with Mr. Keeley.
Absolutely, no problem.
Okay, thank you. Yep. And then looks like that's it.
Yeah. And one of the things that, just as a general point, and I probably should have brought this up with Article 6, one of the things that I'm going to point out in the Express on Thursday is that if somebody wants to propose moving money around, I'm going to be very strict about them needing to tell us where it's coming from. And even then, I'm reserving my right to rule it out of order, or to take a straw poll of the meeting and just say, is this worth debating? And unless there's a significant number of people who want to debate it, I'm going to just rule it out of order or move on. again, I want people to be heard, but if somebody comes up with an idea to take all the money from the police department and give it to the schools, that's just not going to fly. And, I just wanted, the last thing we need at this town meeting is symbolic votes or, kind of somebody getting up on a soapbox when it has no real chance of changing the budget. So I just wanted to put that out there tonight.
I agree. Okay, so now we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to our recommendations.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to log off unless you think you might need me.
Nope. Thank you very much.
Terrific. Wonderful meeting, guys. Great seeing you.
Bye, Sean.
Bye, Sean. Thank you.
Okay, Kevin, you want to stay on just through we go through these, or just if
Yes,
they
sir,
have
I'll stay on.
questions? Okay, all right. We appreciate it. Okay, so the first one that we haven't voted, it looks like, is Article 4. No, I think the articles, so I have the highway walk behind blower and then the berm curver. So John, I'm looking at the Excel spreadsheet. And I'm just gonna go through the ones that we haven't recommended, but under the two highway things, it says Article 4 and 5, so that's not right, right? Because those are all under the same article.
No, you might want to say, now that the board has seen how the finance committee has voted on all of the articles, you might want to ask if there were any people that wanted to change their vote from last week based on what the finance committee went.
Okay, that's a great point. So what John's saying is anything that we've already voted on, now that you see FinCom's recommendation, is there any articles, is there anything that the board wants to bring up and discuss and possibly change their recommendation based on FinCom's recommendations? I think what John was saying.
That's what I was trying to say, yeah.
Anyone? Okay. All right, so I don't know if this sheet
Yeah, then the first one would be on the special town meeting, Article 4. That's the walk behind blower for $3,750 from free cash. The finance committee voted 5-0 for that, to recommend that article.
I'm just curious, Mr. Chairman, can we do this as a consent agreement? If anyone has an issue with any one of these articles, speak now, or otherwise we would just say yes on the 4, 5, 6, and 7.
I don't have an issue, but I would just like to know where FinCom, what their perspective was. Like, I don't want to discuss each one, but generally, if they had a philosophy, I'd kind of like to know why they voted yes. Because, I think I was just nervous that we weren't going to have the money and every little bit was going to count. So I'd just be curious.
Which one are you referring to?
Like really almost the whole special town meeting, like 4, 5, the ones that we voted not to vote on because we didn't know how FinCom was going to vote. Most of those were because we were concerned that even though it wasn't large, they weren't in general large amounts of money. We just wanted to kind of know where FinCom was going to come down on it. So I assume they just feel comfortable that we're going to have the money or that these guys need it. And then in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to help or hinder our budget. But I'm just assuming that. So I'd love to hear from them.
Quickly, I'll go through a couple of them. Article 4 is $3,750. That's for the walk behind blower. So we haven't, this is part of the consent agenda that I'm speaking to. So does anybody have any questions about the walk behind blower? Okay.
I don't have any questions, but again, I'd just like to know why was FinCom okay with it? Why were they okay with the berm thing? Like, yeah.
Sure.
I mean, you want him to go through every one and tell him why he's okay with it?
No, I just thought he'd generally give us his philosophy, which I'm assuming is like, hey, we think these guys need it. It's going to not really impact. I don't know what he's going to say, but that's what I was thinking.
So we took a look at the overall request, the overall dollar value, the longer term financial impact it could have on the town. and made the decision that, I mean, I think if we're looking at the special town meeting, the total ask from free cash was $57,000. So no one really had an issue with those. You know, those are gonna, the asks were going to better the town. It wasn't a huge dollar figure, but that's where, you know, we understand the financial situation we're in, but at the same time, we don't want to go all stop on progress. You know, getting some of these asks in that we can is needed, because if we just went all stop, you know, then they just pile up. Then October comes and now we've got an agenda with, you know, 30 items on it instead of that. So that was our feeling behind those. And, you know, they provided some sort of long-term, you know, short or long-term financial benefit to the town.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so does that kind of cover it for all the articles as far on the capital improvement stuff? Laura, is that?
Oh, it absolutely covers it for me.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions? Because if not, I agree with Mr. Bloss that we are looking for a motion to recommend the consent agenda on the special town meeting, which is Articles 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
So moved.
Second by Jim.
Okay, so the motion's made and seconded. Roll call vote. Mr. Dyer.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Mrs. Kemet.
Aye.
Mr. Bloss.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay. So Gria, that's the consent agenda, Articles 2 through 7. Okay, next. So that takes care of the special.
Yep.
So now we can move on to the annual. I'm sorry, I'm juggling papers around here.
So the first one that wasn't voted on, Mr. Chairman, on the annual was Article 5, and that was to amend the regional school agreement. The Finance Committee voted not to recommend that 5-0.
Okay, that's a great place to start. So this is on the agreement. I mean, I'll say my 2 cents. I think you guys pretty much know where I stand. You know, I think that, you know, for the kids, again, this isn't where we want to be, but I really, really, truly believe that we should try to find a way to support this article and take the 50-50 deal. You know, in that deal, it says 50-50, and then it says that we're going to go with statutory moving further. But I don't know if I'm convinced of that, because you can still renegotiate that agreement. You know, that's an addendum to the agreement. So who's to say that we can't go 50-50? You know, figure out a way, if we can, to come up with the 800,000, you know, squeak through this year and then deal with it next year. Because, you know, a no on this article it's gonna cost us, you, me, all of us, it's gonna cost us more money in the long run, and we're gonna get less services. I don't see any other way around this. I totally get the reasons why everyone has different reasons why they're not going to support this, and I totally get it. You know, most of the reasons I agree with, but if I put the reasons aside and I think about the kids and I think about COVID-19, you know, everyone's been through just such a difficult year, whether you're a business, you're a school, you're a town, everything has just been so difficult. And I just think that the school is listening to this, the school committee meetings. I mean, they have so much to overcome between now and, you know, the first week in September, as far as busing, whether kids are going to come to school, whether the kids aren't going to come to school. Are they going to teach the kids at home? Are they going to teach them in school? And I just think that if this article gets voted down and it's not supported on by us, because we're the leaders, we're the ones that everyone in the town voted for as their voice of reason. And I just think that, you know, if I'm a resident and my board of selectmen are not supporting something, then why would I support it? And again, I think that all the reasons that everyone has, I totally agree with, but I think you get it done this year, and then you go back to the table next year and you renegotiate, I just really, really, truly believe that, but I would love to hear from everyone else. Mr. Dyer, go ahead.
Kenny, without any doubt, the schools are under enormous pressure. And, I want to support the schools to the best I can. But right at the moment, I think what the towns agree on is just very simple. 50-50 for this fiscal year. We'll revisit the topic over the next fiscal year rather than be under the pressure, be under the pressure of this or nothing, or this, or all the teachers are going to be laid off. I think that we just need to say, do a 50-50 split for this year and move forward, make sure the kids get what they need, make sure the teachers get what they want, and go forward from there. But I just don't think that we should be mandated or just sign a contract saying into a perpetuity, this is going to be a statutory. I agree, let's do a 50-50 split for this year, but I can't sign off on saying until we come up with a new agreement, we're going to go do statutory.
Okay, Mr. Hickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really would like, I'm getting some echo. Is anybody else hearing that?
If it
No,
doesn't,
you're okay.
if it doesn't,
Is that any better?
Yes, it was.
I can. Okay, I'm hearing everything double, so I'll just speak and then we'll see what happens.
quick second, Kenny, it says it's coming from you, sorry.
Oh, is it coming from me?
Yeah, so if you just mute your mic, it would be okay.
I was really hoping to hear from the Finance Committee before the Board of Selectmen spoke to see why they voted 5-0 against it. I mean, I have my opinion, and I don't think the chair of the Finance Committee will change my mind, but I really wanted to hear why they were 0-5 or 5-0 against. And then I guess I could speak. I don't know. Is that possible?
Sure. Yeah, I can give you our general consensus. For us, when we come down to town meeting, it becomes a math problem. I have to present a balanced budget to town meeting. Right now, we don't have the money to cover that 800,000. So it would lead to the significant cuts we discussed. The town at the election was overwhelmingly not in favor of the override. I don't like being, I'm looking at it as if we sign off on this 1-year deal, we're locked in perpetuity and statutory because they can delay. They never have to come back to the bargaining table. If we agree to this, there's no going back. It's done. We don't get a second choice. We don't get another round. If this is voted for at town meeting, if it's voted for, we're going to have to wait and see if Whitman votes for it and they're in favor of it, and our town votes for it, someone on town meeting floor is going to have to amend the budget because the money isn't there. So right there on town meeting floor, someone's got to be ready with an $800,000 solution to this. We're locked in perpetuity. I understand both sides of the argument, but we came down to the numbers. We said we don't have $800,000 when we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, this whole discussion could be for naught because Whitman next Monday could say, no, we're not approving it. So we're right back there. So, our scenarios came down to having multiple sets of budgets ready, or we look at, this is not where we want to be. If this is approved, we're stuck after this first year. We go to 50, we're at statutory, end of story. We can get rid of all the rest of the articles, asking for petitions because we're agreeing. They never have to come back to the table if we go to statutory. So, I looked at where the town voted. I was for the override. I was for getting that money and solving this problem now. The town was not. The people, we had a fairly large voter turnout, I'd say. I don't think we're going to have that many people at town meeting, but overwhelmingly, the citizenry decided they didn't want the override. And then without the override, the same thing goes. They don't want the cuts to the town departments either. So unfortunately, this is sort of a lose-lose scenario where we have to just march forward and see what happens. And it could go even farther down the hole, but we're leaving ourselves at least an open seat at the table to negotiate. If we vote this, it's all over. So that was sort of our scenario.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Mr. Chair, everybody's going to get their chance to put their 2 cents in. And I was also for the override. I voted for it, and it didn't pass, and that's too bad. I was hoping it would, because it would make things a little bit easier. And I've been very vocal from the beginning that I didn't think we should pay more. In one of my interviews, I think I had said that this is like the Boston Tea Party, where we don't pick up a 5th seat on the school committee either. But this is the 11th hour. And, as a parent, I'm not willing to take the chance. My kids have already gone through the school system, but as a parent, I'm not willing to take the chance. Kevin is absolutely right that Whitman is going to vote on this before us. But if we don't recommend this, then they won't have to. If we as a board at least recommend this, there will be a school system for our kids to go to. And with some of the stuff Kevin said, and Kevin, you may be right, but I don't think that this is a one-shot deal. I know we're going to have to find the $800,000 somewhere. I don't know where. I'm not going to be that person to stand up and say we have to get the money here, but we have to do something. If this article doesn't get approved, there's a real possibility that the whole school system is going to be shot to hell. That's all I have.
Okay, Mrs. Kemet.
Wow. Okay, yeah, that's a lot to unpack. And and when I hear our FinCom guys say we don't know where we're going to get the 800,000 from, I agree. And so I try to think about, well, what will happen if if by some miracle Whitman passes this, and then it passes at our town meeting, some miracle, because people are saying school's about to open. We're seeing all these videos by Dr. Jones about no PE, no foreign languages. I don't know the whole series, but I know there've been a bunch of them, and what the dire consequences are going to be if this budget doesn't pass. What happens? I'm sincerely asking, if they pass it at Whitman and we pass it at our town meeting, what happens? Where does that money come from? I mean, I want to say, and I said at the last meeting, I'm grateful for the people on the Whitman side of things that have tried to be a decent partner, and I know that it isn't as much as we want it to be, but it's $600,000. And to think that that's going to come along, or that if we refuse this offer, that somehow they're going to come back with a better offer, I think is delusional. I don't think we're going to get anything better, but I agree with Mr. Dyer, with the fact that what gives me a great deal of pause, and I think Mr. Sullivan said it as well, is then we're locked in. If we agree to the amendment the way it's written, we always have the option to amend that on the floor. Of course, what will happen then is the Whitman amendment will not be consistent with our amendment, and effectively it won't pass. So we'll end up having to go back again and talk. And if they're even willing to put the amendment on the floor again and have another, have another town meeting and put that offer on the table. So sincerely, John and Kevin, I'm asking you, walk me through what town meeting looks like if this passes, and it passed at Whitman. What happens?
So I think town accountant Todd Hassett is on the call. Is that you, Todd?
Oh, I didn't see him. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I mean, I can give it, or maybe if Todd is on, he can go over it.
I
If he-
mean,
Or Kevin, sorry, I can speak.
yeah, I mean, we'll have to go in right there and look at the general fund budget and amend lines. I don't want to say blindly, but we'll have to go in and make adjustments to see if we can get there on some of the lines. And the only issue becomes that you have to do it to the heavier lines, the lines where there's more to be taken from, which no one really wants to see. People forget that the school makes up such a large portion of the budget. Even going through it, it's tough to fill those gaps. I mean, we would have to assess again prior to the meeting where we are, what funds are still available, where there's more room. Right now in the general fund, there's not the room. Revenue is down. So if you look at the governor's cherry sheets, revenue is down. Our new growth is way down. So, it'll be about, we'll have to fly. It'll definitely delay that meeting, or we'll have to, I don't know if we can break for, but it'll have to happen there, because I don't think we can leave with that significant of a hole in the budget.
Well,
Kate, do you have, I mean,
So just remember, and I'm not talking about the political aspects at all and how this would ultimately play out, but by amending the regional agreement, it allows the apportionment to be determined in a different way. But it's still the same process in terms of budget approval. So they give you an assessment, and I'm just throwing a number out, $1 million, because it's easy to deal with. They give you an assessment, Hanson, you've got to pay us $1 million. To some degree, it doesn't matter what the apportionment is. I mean, they have to abide by either the agreement or by statutory. But say they gave you a statutory $1 million assessment. You don't have to appropriate $1 million. You have to present to town meeting that $1 million, and then town meeting can say $800,000. So I'm not sure how the numbers all work, but if you approve the regional agreement amendment, it just allows the school committee to apportion it in that way. So if you appropriate $800,000 instead of the $1 million, that gets sent back to the school committee, and they decide, can I live with $800,000? What did Whitman appropriate? And can we make the numbers work, or do we send back a different figure, either based on the regional agreement or the statutory? So I don't know if you end up burning bridges that way, and they're like, no, forget it, we're going to shove statutory down their throats at that point. I'm not 100% sure how they'll react, but you can always appropriate what you want to appropriate. They come back to you with a new assessment, and if it worked with Whitman's numbers, Whitman doesn't need another town meeting. You would just have another shot at the apple to have another town meeting, which is unusually complicated because of the pandemic. But put that piece aside too. You don't necessarily have to react to the numbers that night. I'm not sure if it's possible. I don't know. I know Todd is like amazing, so he probably can do it. But I'm just not sure if it is possible. So there's that other piece, that other option that you have, that you can shoot for a second town meeting.
I mean, the bottom line here is, at a bare minimum, we will be paying $10.9 million, bare minimum, and it will be statutory. That's the bare minimum that we will be paying if we cannot get a budget in place. So we're still in the hole by $500,000. And what does that get us? Statutory 10.9 means they're still going to have all the cuts, and we're going to be making cuts too. And everybody's a colossal loser in that picture. because we're still trying to come up with a difference of 500,000, and yet it's not meeting what the school assessment is. So I'm, to me, this amendment is an opportunity. And again, to Kate's point, which I love, it's an opportunity for us to say, we agree to the 50-50 for this year. And Mr. Mitchell, I know what you're saying, that, yeah, we're agreeing to it this year, but, like, we can maybe negotiate it next year. But a negotiation takes two willing partners, two willing parties. And I think we've gotten a pretty strong message that they're willing this year. We've got some alliances, some people that are supporting us. I'm not sure that same sentiment would be shared after this year. But again, we could, it's taking a chance. We're taking a chance that people would be willing to come back to the table. So, all right, thank you, Kate. That was helpful. I am leaning in favor of it, just because I feel like if we don't, I just don't want to think about what the ramifications are here for our little people and, for the school system, and it just seems catastrophic.
Yeah, Mr. Bloss.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, at this point, I have nothing to add. I agree with you. I agree with Laura. I agree with Jim. And I think our kids have already lost 3 months of their education that they will never recover. We all know that they are about to lose more. The only question is how much more in the coming months, or I dread to even think years. So at this point, I can't believe that there's anyone here who rationally believes that we will get a better deal from Whitman. And with that being said, I'll stop right there and say I'm going to support it also.
Yeah, I just don't want to be sitting here on December 2nd going, you know what? We should have took the deal.
Well, and you're right, because December 1st,
now we're 1.3 million, and not only if it gets to December 2nd and we say we should have took the deal, we're at statutory. Okay,
yep.
So the part that the residents and the people have to understand is, if this doesn't go through at town meetings, either town meeting, we're gonna have to make some type of cuts to get there, because if it gets to the state taking over, the state is going to send us a bill. There's no more negotiating. The state sends us a bill and they say, here's your portion, Hanson, and here's your portion, Whitman. And we have to get to that number. And the only way to get to that number, you're talking massive cuts. It's that simple.
And I know we're in the hole, like, already, look, bare minimum, we're in the hole, 500,000. Basic, the worst case scenario, we don't pass this, we can't get a budget passed, yada yada. We're 10.9, we're 500,000 over what we can afford, which is 10.4. Yes, I know this adds another 300,000, but it adds 300,000 and it gets the schools up and running with what they need to be up and running. And I'm sure even in the COVID world, they're still going to have to, cut here and there, just because there's additional costs that aren't even built into this budget. So, I mean, the other thing I want to emphasize is that we're just voting what we each individually think as a selectman, as somebody that people have elected to represent them. We're thinking, those of us that are saying that we think this is the best deal we're going to get. It's not going to get better. But ultimately, it's up to the voters. It's always up to the voters. It's up to the people that show up at town meeting to let us know whether they agree or disagree. We're simply making a recommendation one way or the other.
Okay, we're going to move to the vote. So I'm looking for a motion to recommend Article 5 of the annual town meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Roll call vote. Mr. Dyer.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Mrs. Kemet.
Aye.
Mr. Bloss.
aye.
And I'm an aye. Thank you. And I think you all made the right choice. And like Laura said, the rest is up to the voters. So I thank you again. Article 6. Mr. Bloss.
I think the next one that wasn't voted on was Article 7. That was the Recreation Enterprise Fund. And that the Finance Committee voted on that one 5-0.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on that one for Mr. Sullivan? No? Okay.
Well, yeah, Kevin, I know you're like a little, I don't want to use the wrong word, but I guess I'm conscious that I might. Skittish maybe about that budget or concerned about that budget. Are you feeling more comfortable with it because they haven't been spending money, or where are you guys at? Like, what was the combo on that in a nutshell?
Yeah, sure. No, we're not comfortable on it. You know, right now we've done something I think we've never done before, and we're using free cash to fund recreation and transfer station. I have some deep concerns over, you know, where we are with recreation. It's the revenues are, you know, going to become almost non-existent. So at what point do you just have to scrap 2020? I'm sorry, FY 2021 and say we'll move on to next year? You know, there's still people to be paid up there. There's still expenses. There's still work going on. You know, we're still allocating for some of the projects to get done. I think the wiring and the vent hood, and you know, so it's not that we're shelving the whole thing, but I just, you know, the significant portion of their revenue is weddings, and they're way down and they're non-existent. And you know, we were on a good trajectory, I think, with the recreation department. I think prior to COVID, you know, we were seeing a positive trend. Again, it's what brings these into. I always look at recreation transfer in a different light because they do operate under the enterprise fund. You know, there's no retained earnings. In years past, we've had retained earnings. Retained earnings are gone, which, you know, isn't a good sign for an enterprise fund if you have no retained earnings year over year. But that's a discussion for another time. So, you know, yeah, the Finance Committee have some significant concerns with recreation just because of the revenue they're generating. If it's all right, I can speak to transfer station because I'm sure that'll be the next one. We have some concerns with the transfer station as far as expenses. There is, you know, the expenses are exponentially increasing year over year at a rate which isn't sustainable in the long term. You know, they're going to have to either look at increasing their revenue, which we know isn't a popular option because that causes the bag price to go up and people don't want to pay more for the bags. But you know, the hauling fees are through the roof. China's not taking recycling. So, you know, we haven't stopped. The town hasn't stopped recycling. You know, I think there's still people who are, you know, going off of the old plan where recycling was, you know, free, or you could recycle as much as you want. But I think that they've got to take a serious look. You know, to a certain extent, they can't control the hauling fees. You can negotiate a long-term contract, but they end up becoming what the going rate is. So if your expenses are growing exponentially on hauling fees, the only other way to control them is to either a reduction in the hours that they're open, which I believe last cycle, Laurie, you and I sat down with Arlene and covered some of those numbers. So those numbers do exist. They know that, you know, closing it another day saves X amount of dollars a year. That's an option. Or increasing the revenue that they bring in, which would be increasing the cost of the bags. You know, that's obviously not a popular. People look at the transfer station as the low cost option, but it's low cost because it's you know,
subsidized.
the expenses. Yeah, it's subsidized by the town budget, and it's growing exponentially larger, that subsidy, every year.
You know, Mr. Chairman, I have a sense of deja vu. And because we've heard Mr. Sullivan make these same statements consistently over the years, and I'm wondering, can we commit as a board that we will dig into these two issues in this upcoming year and see what we can do, whether it's, you know, look, if we decide that, look, we want to have these things and we're going to subsidize them, then maybe we get away from the way that the financial structure is working for them now. We're just completely honest and just say, look, they're going to cost the town money. We think that they're things that citizens want and deserve, and it's going to cost. And we don't have any expectations that they're going to be self-sustaining. I think it's time for us to have a little introspection, little honesty about where these two things are at going forward. So I'll put that in the parking lot, but I just mentioned it because I think it's something we need to take up in the future.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. I mean, Kevin's been telling us for probably 2 years now that, we need to get rid of the enterprise fund and fund this through the general fund. In fact, we almost had it done last year and it got changed at town meetings. So absolutely, this has to be discussed because we just keep kicking it down. Todd's been talking about it. It's been a few years now. So it's something that we absolutely have to address sooner than later. So I do agree. So let's take Article 7 and 8, which Kevin responded to both. Article 7 is recreation. Article 8 is the transfer fund. So I'm looking for a motion to recommend Article 7 and Article 8.
So moved by Matt.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Dyer.
Kenny, before I vote on this, I just want to say the last 2 years I've been asking for a business plan from recreation. I know there was a little bit of momentum over the last fall, but I haven't seen anything. We haven't heard anything. And, I know they were going to come present it to us, and they just keep on kicking the can down the road here. I agree with Laura. We need to address these issues. I want to see a business plan. It's been 2 years.
Right, okay. Anyone else have any comments?
I just to add, compliment what Mr. Dyer is saying. I think Mr. Bloss had some ideas about restructuring, about what that could look like and that type of thing. And I know we haven't finalized our goals for next year because we had a few things, get in between like COVID. But, perhaps when we are all able to start looking ahead and we are looking at a more broader level, looking at recreation, what does that mean, who is involved, what's the business plan, I think it may be time for us to figure out what we want to be when we grow up there. And that is absolutely not meant in any way to be disrespectful to the current Recreation Commission members who I know are killing themselves to keep things going, and I appreciate it and I feel it and I see it. They're working very hard and I really appreciate it. But I think similarly the transfer station. So maybe those could kind of be in our goals. Two of our goals.
Okay, I agree. Back to the roll call vote. Mr. Dyer.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Mrs. Kemet.
Aye.
Mr. Bloss.
Aye, with the reservations that I am voting on the FinCom's recommendations. I am going with them with my fingers crossed. And what both Laura and Matt have said, I wholeheartedly subscribe to.
Okay. And I'm an aye. All right, let's see, what's the next one?
So the next one, Mr. Chairman, is
11?
Article 11, and that was the capital projects for the town and the water.
And we discussed those with Mr. Sullivan. So Article 11, so I'm looking for a motion to approve Article 11.
So moved.
There's your second.
West seconds.
Okay, recommend, not approve, sorry. Roll call vote, Mr. Dyer,
Aye.
Mr. Hickey,
Aye.
Mrs. Kemet.
Oh boy. Okay. I mean, it's 300,000. I just want to mention that it is 300,000 and we're going to be looking for money, but yes, aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye. All right, next is Article 12. That's the sped council and the area reconfiguration. Looking for a motion to recommend Article 12.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Mr. Dyer, roll call vote.
John, did we ever hear back? Sorry, Kenny, I just had a question. John, did we ever hear back from the schools? I believe there was a quick email that went out explaining what it was. And if I'm correct, it's to knock down a couple of walls and put up a couple of doors or something along that line.
Yes, it was in last week's packet. I don't have it here, but I could pull it up. But it was along those lines. There was a response from Dr. Jones and from Mr. Sandlin.
And with that being said, Mr. Chair, I vote nay, just because right now I don't think it's time to be doing remodeling when we're going through a financial crunch.
Okay. All right, thanks, Matt. Where are we? Mr. Hickey.
Aye.
Mrs. Kemet.
Aye.
Mr. Bloss.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Okay, next, that's Article 14. Next is Article 17. And Article 17, that's the community church agreement. Okay, so that's the electric supply article. All right, so I'm looking for a motion to, oh, before we do that, is Mr. Armstrong out there?
No, he is not. I told him, don't worry about it for tonight. My apologies.
Thanks, Matt. I just want to double check.
Oh, okay.
Is that one we're going to be passing over, Mr. Chairman? Is that we were talking about earlier?
Yeah, I don't think we've made that determination yet. It's one that it looks like we may be passing over, but I think we should talk to Mary Ann before we make that decision. So I don't know
Well,
what you guys.
she just texted me saying Jim Armstrong told her we were moving it to the fall. So it's a little awkward since we didn't make that decision.
Right. Okay, so let's do this, John. Let's reach out to Mary Ann and we can do the same thing, motion to pass over like we did that other article. All right, and we'll just.
Okay, yes.
We'll just
You know,
go on.
I think to be honest with you, if we want to be supportive of it, and I think all of us, with the exception of Mr. Dyer, had said that we were kind of conceptually in favor. And I know, Matt, your objection was the opt-out, which has gotten quite a bit of controversy. I think we'll be doing her no favor by rushing this through. I think there's an education that needs to happen that we have perhaps not had the time to do. But I'm also curious why FinCom had voted not to recommend it, Kevin. That was curious to me.
Sure. So we looked at it, we examined the article, and for us, it provides no savings to the town. All it does is move the type of energy. If it, they talked about aggregating the entire town together, our initial hope was that it was a lower rate. So, but all it's doing is changing where the power comes from. So between that and we had some members who had a real problem with the opt-out process, to say that you have to opt out of, on top of that, the adding committees. We have so many committees in this town already that are unfulfilled. Now it's adding, it's more committees, it's more, and in the bottom, it doesn't change anything in the bottom line. It just locks people into, I hate to say, a political. The opt-out was a big problem for a lot of our members.
Yeah, that did seem to take on political undertones. And just to be clear, the Energy Committee already exists, so it would be using an existing committee, but I hear what you're saying. Okay, thank you. So Ken, are we voting to pass over this, or, I mean, what are you doing?
We can do that at town meeting.
Okay, so for tonight, you do need us to recommend or not?
No, if not, if we're gonna pass it over.
Okay, well, that's why I'm asking. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think we're gonna, but I want, just to be fair, I want John just to double check, double check with Mary Ann to make sure, and then we can just do that motion to pass over like the other article. If that's okay with you guys.
Well, it's fine, but the reason I'm asking is, isn't it once it, what would we do? Vote just prior to our meeting if we decide not to pass it over and Mary Ann would like to present?
If you want to proceed at town meeting, she gives you information and you say, absolutely, we want to go forward with this motion, you can, at your prior meeting, the half hour before town meeting, make a recommendation, just announce it from the floor.
That's what I was asking. Okay, great, thanks.
What I could do in the informational warrant is say that the Board of Selectmen will make a recommendation at town meeting. Is that?
There you
And
go.
then you can,
Yep, that sounds good. And I believe, Mr. Stanbrook, that should be the last one, right?
yes, that's it.
Okay. All right, so,
Mr. Chair, sorry.
go ahead.
For Article 23, no, sorry, Article 22, we're passing over that at town meeting, you said?
Hold on, Matt.
Yep.
Let's see.
Yep,
It's
Yes.
the hiring process.
yep.
That's-
That's the one that John's gonna write the motion so that I pass over it. And we
All
have,
right.
we have a further discussion with the stakeholders. Yep.
All right, so, Kevin, Kate, thank you guys very much. I don't think we need your services any longer. Thank you, and we'll see
Thanks,
you
Kate.
both
Thanks,
next
Kevin.
Tuesday on the 29th. But before you leave, Mr. Hickey has something for you.
I do?
Oh, I thought you said Kevin.
No, I wanted to thank them both for, being here and explaining everything.
You made it sound like he was gonna give them some type of an award or something. I was like,
Yeah,
what's happening? Not in the
I'll-
in-crowd here.
Now my expectations have been dashed.
Thank you.
Jim, you never
Kate,
know.
thank you. Kevin.
Bye,
Exempted.
guys.
Bye, guys. See you next week.
Okay, next, under appointments, we have the resignation of Peter Daley. And Peter is a sergeant at the police department, and he was on Parks and Fields. But Peter does, he's also runs our youth basketball league, and he just wanted to devote more time with that. He does a great job with it. So he's going to be giving up his seat with regret. So I'm looking for a motion to accept the resignation letter with regret.
So moved, and thank you.
Second, with regret, obviously.
Motion's made and seconded. Roll call vote. Mr. Dyer,
Aye.
Mr. Hickey,
Aye.
Mrs. Kemet,
Aye.
Mr. Bloss.
And I still have a broken rib for Mr. Daley.
And I'm an aye.
We need details on that, Wes.
Yeah.
Okay, next is Parks and Fields. So we have two spots that we need to fill. One is Paul Clark, 4 Williams Way. That term that's Bob Hayes' old term, to expire 6/30/23. So I'm looking, Paul, if you guys remember, Paul was on our call when we opened up the fields. He's the president of Hanson Youth Baseball. So I'm looking for a motion to appoint Paul Clark to Parks and Fields with a expiration date of 6/30/2023.
So moved by Matt.
What, can I just point of order? With all of our rest of our appointments, we had only appointed people until the end of August, until we did all of the vetting of all of the committees and boards. So I'm wondering why we're not being consistent with these appointments.
Good point,
Well,
Laura.
these appointments, we know these people want to be there and they're going to be there. So
We had a lot of people on the other list that we know wanted to be there too, like Community Preservation, Energy Committee, where I'm just saying we're not being consistent.
okay, so when would you like to appoint them till?
I think we should be consistent with appointing them till the end of, I think it was August that we did all of the rest of the appointments. I'd look to John and Greer to verify that, but I thought that was what it was.
It was August 30th.
August 30th. Yeah,
So August 30th, that was the date that the other appointments were made to.
yep.
Oh, is that what you guys want to do?
Makes sense,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay, that's fine. So scratch that with expiration date of 6/31/20.
So moved by Matt.
Second by
Mr. Chairman,
Jim.
that
That
should
was
be
8:31.
8:30. Yeah,
8:30:20. Otherwise, his term expired before we even started.
Already.
Motion's made and seconded. Roll call vote. Mr. Dyer,
Aye.
Mr. Hickey,
Aye.
Mrs. Kemet,
Aye.
Mr. Bloss,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, the next one is Adam, and I'm not even gonna try to say his last name. Adam, we all know who Adam is. 372 Home Street, and same expiration date, August 31st, 2020. That's to fill Peter Daley's term.
So
So
moved.
moved by Matt.
Second.
Second by Jim.
Roll call, Mr. Dyer.
Well, can we just say we're thrilled that these guys are stepping up and we appreciate it?
Absolutely. Yep.
Aye.
Mr. Hickey,
Aye.
Mrs. Kemet,
Aye.
Mr. Bloss,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, the next one, John, you're gonna have to help me with this one. Master Mechanic Highway, David Smith.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matt Cahill, is Highway Director, is also on the call. The master mechanics position opened up in the Highway Department. The internal posting date for that position was posted from April 28th, 2020 to May 13th, 2020. The posting was up for 2 weeks at all town buildings, in accordance with the Highway Department's collective bargaining agreement. An external posting date, it ran in the Whitman Hanson Express on May 21st, 2020, and on May 28th, 2020. We opened up the posting to external candidates after receiving only one internal candidate. We felt that would broaden the applicant pool and give us the best opportunity to find the most qualified candidate for the town. We received 2 external candidates from the external posting times. And then we had interviews in the room here with social distancing and hygienically done properly. And we did interviews with all 3 candidates on June 25th, 2020. We met with the internal candidate first, and then we discussed his qualifications. And we decided to move on later on to interview the external candidates, 2 external candidates. And after all the interviews were completed, both Mr. Cahill and I agreed that David Smith is the best fit for the town of Hanson. He has 25 years of experience as a mechanic with large, medium, and small equipment and vehicles, and his experience was far exceeded the other candidates. We feel his addition to the town of Hanson will help save money in the long run by reducing the maintenance costs and equipment for the Highway Department, the Police Department, and the Town Hall. And so I would recommend David Smith for the Master Mechanics position in the Highway Department. And I would defer to Mr. Cahill if he'd like to add anything on that one.
Matt, you'd like to add
I'd just
anything?
like to say, I think Mr. Smith is, in full-heartedly, you can say this, Mr. Smith's a very good candidate for the town and really brings a lot to the table for the town of Hanson moving forward.
Okay, excellent. So John, you just given us your recommendation. You don't need our vote.
No, you have to vote. I give my recommendation and you vote to appoint or to not.
Okay. All right. Any questions for John?
Nope.
Not seeing any. I'm looking for a motion to appoint David Smith to the Master Mechanic position at the Highway Department.
So moved, Jim.
Second by Matt.
Motion's made and seconded. Roll call vote. Mr. Dyer,
Aye.
Mr. Hickey,
Aye.
Mrs. Kemet,
Aye.
Mr. Bloss,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay. Good luck, Matt. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank all of you. I appreciate it and we look forward to working with everybody.
North River Commission alternate, John Kemet, 83 Bay State Circle. I'm looking for a motion to appoint John Kemet as an alternate on the North River Commission.
So moved, Jim.
Kenny, is that with an expiration till the end of August?
I don't know.
I was waiting for that.
No comment.
It's only fair, expiration August 31st, 2020. Do I have a second?
Second by Matt.
Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Dyer,
Aye.
Mr. Hickey,
Aye.
Mrs. Kemet,
Abstain.
Mr. Blas,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. 401 Greer. Okay, old business. I think we're covered there. Approve minutes of May 5th, 2020. Did you guys get a chance to review those minutes? Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes of May 5th, 2020.
So moved by Matt.
Second by
Second.
Jim.
Motion's made and seconded. Roll call vote. Mr. Dyer,
Aye.
Mr. Hickey,
Aye.
Mrs. Kemet.
Aye.
Mr. Blas,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. The town administrator report, Mr. Stanbrook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I signed the following warrants on behalf of the board since the last meeting. A warrant dated June 30th, 2020, warrant 55, and that's for $235,807.57, and that's a vendor warrant, and that is the last warrant of the year for fiscal year 20. And $58.4 thousand of that was IT work on the fiber project, and $20.7 thousand, I'm rounding the numbers up, were for on legal bills. So that's it for the last warrant for last year. We also signed a warrant dated July 16th, 2020, warrant 3 PR for $158.17, and that was a payroll warrant. I also signed a warrant dated July 16th, 2020, warrant 3 for $138,501.32, and that was a vendor warrant, and $123,000 of that was related to Mass Clean Water Trust debt. So that was the bulk of that warrant. And finally, another final warrant dated July 16th, 2020, warrant 3WH for $29,424.13, and that was a payroll withholding warrant. I also, the board had authorized me to sign Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 33B transfers on behalf of the board. Again, these are end of the year transfers needed to fund small amounts of overages that have happened during the course of the year. So I signed, and the Finance Committee has to approve it as well, and they did. I signed transfer FY20-08 for $6,133. I signed that on July 14th, and that was from planning board salaries to 7 various departments. And it was about the extra leap day. I think we talked about that before. A vacation buyback, some advertising expenses, and some mapping services. And again, that'll be the last transfer of the year. Again, the law says that you can make transfers up to the 15th of July for the previous year, and this was signed on the 14th. So we're all set there. Under old business, the town hall reopening. Town hall is open by appointment only. We had our first appointment last Thursday, which was 4 months to the day since we closed on March 16th. That was a long 4 months, in my personal opinion, but we're back. Town hall is open from 8 to 4 on Monday through Thursday by appointment only. This is for resident interactions that can't be accomplished any other way. Face masks must be worn. Certain COVID-19 related questions must be answered before any meeting can happen with residents or taxpayers inside the town hall. Please call 781-293-5186 for more information. And also you can find the phone numbers on the town's website if you don't want to come down to town hall, of who to directly ask your appointment request. Well, ask for an appointment request. So that's kind of less than perfect English there. But if you want to find your appointment request person that you want to contact, please go to the town website. That's a better way to do it. On July 30th, just an update on some new business. There's going to be a Liberty Street and County Road public hearing at 6 p.m. at the Hanson Middle School. It will be to go over the Complete Streets Public Works project that's located at the intersection of Liberty Street and County Road. Again, 6 p.m. at the Hanson Middle School auditorium. The purpose of the public hearing is to inform residents, business owners, and abutters about the project scope and allow the public an opportunity to give feedback on the project. Please call the Hanson Highway Department at 781-293-2822 for more information. Also, road paving is to begin on Route 14, which is County Road and West Washington Street. That's going to be starting tomorrow. I'd like to ask motorists, please slow down while in the work zone and to enhance safety for you and for the town's employees and contractors. And I'd like to thank everyone in advance for their patience while this needed work is completed. And again, this work is being paid for from Chapter 90 funds. Those are the road funds that we get from the state. And just the next meeting will be August 11th of the Board of Selectmen. The town accountant and the fire chief are going to be scheduled to come in for updates. And believe it or not, we're going to open the special town meeting warrant next meeting for October. So I don't know where the time's going. It's but it's flying by here. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
All right. And John, I want to try to, that August 11th meeting, that's the goal, to go back to the Selectmen's meeting room at Town Hall. So that's what I want to try to push that for a goal. So let's see what happens. All right. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved by Matt.
Second by Jim.
Roll call vote. Mr. Dyer,
Aye.
Mr. Hickey,
Aye.
Mrs. Kemet,
Aye.
Mr. Bloss,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. We'll see you all next week at town meeting. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys. Night.
Bye-bye.
God.